Welcome, listeners, to Thru the Sightglass, a podcast that dives deep into the fascinating world of craft beer and celebrates the incredible individuals who shape its vibrant landscape. Join us on a journey where we explore the nuances of this amazing industry and the remarkable people who contribute to its richness and diversity. And Tobias, thank you for making time. We appreciate you sitting down and sharing your story with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So our first question we normally start out with is, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in central Maine, a little town called Fairfield, and then right around 10th grade, we moved to a little town called Reedfield. So pretty rural areas. So yeah, Maine.
Nice.
Yeah.
Were you only child, or were you in the pack of kids?
I have a brother, an older brother, and a younger sister.
Oh, okay,
Gotcha.
nice.
Middle child, just like
Middle
us.
child.
Yeah, we're middle child.
Yeah, my brother's 4 years older, and my sister is 6 years younger. So there's quite a spread.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. That's
Yeah.
like an interesting time because it's kind of in high school together, but not really.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
one's kind of almost completely left alone.
Totally.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
For sure. What was it like living in rural Maine? We don't know anything about rural Maine. So.
I have a hard time comparing it to anybody else, to any other experience. You know, it's the only
Right.
one I have. But lots of playing in the woods and sledding across the street and those kind of things. Like just outside stuff because that's what's around you.
Yeah.
You know?
Nice.
Yeah. And you like fishing or we've heard that a lot. A lot of
Yeah,
fishing.
not really like a big outdoors guy personally, but there certainly is a lot of that around here.
Definitely. What was it like growing up, like school-wise? Did you do any like sports or extracurricular activities?
I played a little bit of soccer in elementary school and stuff, but I've been a skateboarder my whole life. That's really what I've like done. So I basically at 10 years old got a hold of a skateboard and never put it down.
Yeah, never let it go.
Even to this day. So
Nice.
Love it. Are there
Which
skate
is-
parks?
I actually have a skate park. I
You
have
have a
I have a little warehouse on Capitol Street.
That's awesome.
Just private that me and my friends use, and my 10-year-old skates now too, so he's in there a bunch.
Oh, that's rad.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. I'll show you some videos.
Yeah,
when we're
we'd
done.
love to see it.
No, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So is it cool to see your inspiration? Because you've chosen two awesome, I think, careers, hobbies, and passions of skateboarding and brewing to wear on your body. But is it cool to see that your kids kind of picking it up and following in your footsteps?
Yeah, I think so I have 35 years of skateboarding under my belt, and I don't think I would. And I had a great run. I was pro for a while. I traveled the world pretty extensively. I had a lot of really fun experiences, but I would trade every one of those experiences for the time I'm having right now with my son.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, awesome.
I think it's not to get too nerdy skate nerd guy, but not many parents get to experience their kid learning their first kickflip,
Yeah.
and even less of those parents know what that means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what a monumental. And I'm like, oh, this. If you were good at baseball, this is probably what hitting your first home run would feel like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I got to understand that kind of father-son sport connection a little bit differently as somebody who's not a sports guy.
Yeah.
I never did a kickflip. My brother was a skateboarder, but I could do an ollie. I probably couldn't do it now, but I know. Yeah. So it's hard. Skateboarding is hard. And
It's got to
super
be
fun.
a pretty magical thing to watch your kid, just like as you learn in life, you try and try and try at something and then you finally nail it. That first time when you do that, I don't know. I think that's why people are like, oh yeah, you live through your kids. You get to re-experience things that you did as a child. You're like, oh shit, that magic, that's where it lies.
Yeah, I also think as activities go, if you go bowling, you could be a terrible bowler and get a strike.
Mm-hmm.
If you throw a ball at a basket enough times, you're gonna put it through the hoop. You know what I mean? And most, darts, pool, all those things, you have this ability to experience on a higher level, even though you're terrible at it.
Yeah.
Skateboarding is not like that.
No.
Oh yeah.
You
fall on your face.
I've been skating 35 years. People come up to me all the time and they're like, I'd break my leg if I stepped on a skateboard. Yeah, you probably would.
Yeah.
You probably would. But I think what's important
yeah.
for me, what it did for my life is, there's something about falling down and having to get back up. And if you think about what skateboarding is, it's not perfecting a trick and doing it over and over again. Once you can do something, you typically move on.
Yeah.
So what you do is you don't go skateboarding, you go falling down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's the humility that you get from that. And also you really understand the value of hard work on a very micro level, right? I tried this for 45 minutes, I landed it, I accomplished something. And that you can apply that to so many things in life. You know, you try something in business and it doesn't work. A lot of people give up. And that used to, the failure as a process to success is a really, really valuable thing that I'm really glad my son is learning.
Yeah,
you
it
know?
is super valuable for an entrepreneur as yourself, like opening a brewery and other things. Like, I'm sure, like, learning that tenacity and like you said, hard work and grit to like be like, I know I can do this. I'm gonna keep going. I failed once, twice, 3. Like, you keep going and you get it. I think that is invaluable, and that's something that like I know Austin and I talk about all the time. Of like, we need to get used to that, and the things that we do, like, we don't have a lot of failure, which is I think kind of scary, and like wanting us to like not be immune to it, but be able to handle it, I think is the biggest thing. So as a 10-year-old, I'm sure your son being able to handle that is going to be a lifelong thing to really be impactful.
You think of how crushing experiences can be for people. And then if you can handle those experiences and keep things moving without becoming like damaged and scared to try, then you know, the bar is whatever you want to set for yourself.
I love that.
You know?
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
More kids should skateboard.
I agree.
No, absolutely.
All right, we can wrap it up.
All right, we're done.
I love it. Well, immediately, just 11 minutes in, words of wisdom. It's like, all right, cool. I'm gonna go sip on this.
I think everybody got what they came for. You know.
That's awesome.
Love that so much. So skateboarding, you said that you did it professionally. So, like, high school, did you go to college? What did that look like after high school? Did you just?
Yeah, gosh, I mean, it's a long story, and you know, there's always like there's your experience, and then there's what really happened, and somewhere in the middle of those things is what the truth is, right?
Yeah.
So and now it's so far in the rearview mirror. I think I was between 10th and 11th grade when I first I was sponsored and first got sent on a trip.
Oh, nice.
10th and 11th, maybe it was 11th and 12th grade, but I went to. And I also don't really know if this happened the same summer or one after the other. I just don't have that memory. But I went to both Portugal and Austria on skateboard trips.
Oh, damn.
With distributors. You know,
Okay,
so
gotcha.
the distributor picks you up at the airport. There's no common language. This is like pre-cell phone.
Gotcha.
You don't even know who's going to pick you up or what the deal is. You just walk out of the airport. And, you know, so for a kid, you know, high school kid to experience that kind of stuff, it was cool. So I did that, and I was pretty active, like, you know, getting coverage in magazines and tricks and videos and things like that, from probably like 96, 97 up to finally turning pro in 2001. And I had a reasonably good run. I think I kind of like packed it in about 2007, and I was just at a point where I was kind of getting older, I was getting closer to 30. Was not seeing my contracts getting bigger, but rather getting smaller. And I was not in a place where, you know, I was doing great for a skateboard kid. You know, when you're 21 years old and you can buy a brand new car and not worry about making the payments, you're stoked.
Yeah.
When you're 29, looking at 30, and you go, I could never afford to have a wife or a kid or a house, then it's time to take another look at things. So I moved back to Maine in 2008. I took over my parents' glass company, so contract glazing, like windows, doors, for construction projects. We were relatively small then. My parents were getting close to retirement and really kind of scaling it down. And I took it over. You know, I ran it with them for a while, and then purchased the business from them and ran that until 2022. When I sold that, sort of to be able to focus on passion projects, stuff I really like to do. I'm incredibly fortunate to have this path where I got to play like a little kid until I was 30. And then from 30 to like 44, I did a lifetime's worth of work, I always say. And now at this age, I can focus on jobs that I like and doing fun stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Really, really lucky to be in that position.
I love that so much. So did you grow up drinking, or did your parents drink? What was the beer scene like for you?
Or even like as you were skateboarding, because I know like I think skateboarding and partying can kind of be synonymous, especially growing up around. I was born in '92, but watching Jackass, and a lot of those guys were skateboarders, and obviously Bam Margera. So yeah, I think that was like felt like pretty synonymous in that scene and that. So
yeah, it's interesting because as like a working pro, a guy traveling, doing contests and things like that, partying wasn't really a thing.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
These guys they have a job to do. They have to perform in the morning. You know what I mean? So I don't disagree with that characterization of skateboarding, but I think when you look at successful skateboarders, it's just like anything, right? There's like guys who work at breweries that party like lunatics, but they don't tend to stick around very long. You know, they get a DUI and get fired or whatever, you know? And I think it's, you know, alcohol has its place in this world, and moderation is important. And I think I actually, it's kind of bizarre that I work in beer because I didn't actually drink alcohol at all until I was 21.
Okay, gotcha.
And didn't drink regularly until I moved back to Maine and got a stressful job and discovered craft beer. So, interesting how the parallels between that world and the beer world exists.
Yeah, for sure.
And probably now, I mean, that makes sense. Probably more glorified. Like there was the partying aspect, but yes, looking at professional skateboarders where it's like, no, you are an athlete, you have a job to do. Like you can't maintain both. And so you
also have to look at those guys that were successful and relatively sober and then got famous and then became junkies and are no longer famous.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
true.
that's the Bam story. He struggles with sobriety all the time, and it's like a
Yeah.
constant thing. He's a victim of his own fame. You know,
Yeah, very
when
true.
I was skating against Bam in contests in the late '90s, he was all business.
Gotcha.
You know, he was dead serious at skateboarding. You know
Yeah.
what I mean, he was there to throw down, not to be weird.
That's crazy.
That is
Actually,
wild.
since you mentioned Jackass, I have a Jackass story.
Okay.
I used to ride for a shoe company called Duff's, and we were on a trip to Tampa, and there was a contest there, skate park at Tampa every year, big contest. And so I'm in one of our hotel rooms, and this random dude comes in that like they give shoes to, and he's just this loud. He's kind of obnoxious. Everybody's like, "What is wrong with this guy?" And he took the light bulb out of the lamp and took his shirt off and smashed the light bulb inside of his shirt and started eating the light bulb.
Oh my God.
And then he's like standing on the balcony and he's like spitting like disgusting blood and chunks of glass out of his mouth. And it's Steve-O.
Oh my God.
This is like Steve-O in 1996 or 1997.
Yeah, so this is like no help. To just
Yeah, and I feel we were just tripping. What is this guy? And he was like very, very focused on becoming like a famous, I mean, jackass, I guess. I mean, that's what he really, really did.
Yeah, his story, I will say
That's wild.
It's wild to see people working in this industry for the past 12 years, seeing some people, it's like, oh, you're just like a functional alcoholic. And some people have like accepted their place, but I'm like, dude, look at Steve-O. Look at all the crazy shit he did, and now he's sober, healthy, and like I think more mindful. I'm like, that's wild. That's crazy.
Those people that live in those extremes, though, I mean, of course, you're either going to be a complete wasteoid or you're going to be dead sober.
Yeah,
And probably preaching to everybody on both levels, right?
Yeah.
Probably telling everyone they should sober up or telling everybody that, you know, are wimps and should party more.
We actually have this conversation a lot where there's a lot of people that just because we work in this industry a lot, leave, get sober, usually join CrossFit, but then they preach like holier than thou, and it's like, hey, just because other people partake doesn't mean like they have a problem, but you obviously did, and then it's like a blanket they kind of now, or a lens that they kind of view everybody being like, oh, like I feel bad that you still drink, and it's like, I don't have a problem with
I actually feel fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we all have our own journey, right? And I think anytime you do something that you really enjoy, you want to bring your friends along with you.
Yeah.
And if you know, drinking wasn't for you and you weren't good at it, and sobriety makes you feel great, good for you, man.
Yeah, 100%.
I can be supportive of that. You know, we do a hot seltzer specifically for the NA folks. You know, we enjoy it ourselves. You can't always be drinking beer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, Austin and I talk about that all the time. Like, we go to a lot of breweries, so it's like it's nice to go to a brewery and not have a beer because we want to be there and we want to support them. So we don't want to just like sit and drink water. So it's like we want to buy something, but we don't always want to be drinking.
Yeah.
You know, like we want to be able to like work or function and things like that. So it's nice to have some NA options as well, especially ones that the brewery makes. Like that's really cool to like have some NA options that the brewery makes itself rather than just like getting a Coke or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's tricky too because people get into this business because of their excitement about beer.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was a guy who was, you know, standing in line for beers and chasing down beers, and I flew to San Francisco to have a Pliny at Toronado, and, you know, I mean, I was that guy, you know. And then it becomes, all of a sudden you go from searching out and trying to find good beer to having good beer around you all the time. And it does take a minute to kind of figure out how to manage that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Especially having, we've got this place where we sell pizza. I'm also a partner in a bagel shop down the street. We're now opening a taco restaurant.
Oh my
So I'm
God.
just like a carb dealer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I got to be careful about like eating my own supply because I could blow up pretty quick.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you invest in a cannabis company, I don't know if you use cannabis.
I'll be in real trouble. Yeah.
All right.
So-
Well,
We actually did a cannabis company for a minute.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, and I'm
gotcha.
not a weed smoker. I never have been.
Yeah.
As a kid, I was like, I want to be a pro skateboarder.
Mm-hmm.
As a 10-year-old growing up in rural Maine with like fields on either side of me, and like luckily when my parents paved my driveway, I could skate. I just felt like every single step that I took needed to be towards becoming a pro skateboarder, and I never felt like I was talented. So I always felt like I had to work harder. And I was like, I need to have better lungs than everybody else. If they're all smoking, I'm not. And that's just like stuck in my mind. I'm 46 years old. I never smoked anything in my life. I'm never
Yeah.
going to, you know?
Yeah.
That's smart.
But we did, our brewer, Chris, and I did with a cannabis company, did a little partnership where he did a THC seltzer,
Okay.
which
Oh,
was really,
right.
really great. And then we
Yeah.
sold it. And I'm kind of happy to be out of that business.
Yeah. There
Yeah.
you go.
It's kind of like the beer business, but in fast forward.
Yeah.
It's kind of like eating itself a little bit, you know?
Yeah. I mean, we've seen how much it's all changed with legalization. It's gone from, you typically buying from your neighbor, which felt like a farmer's market, to now it's like high-end grocery stores, and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, I think if you look at product life cycle as a concept, there's no product that's immune to it, right? So you have this like the early situation where like legalization happens or the craft beer boom. I think we're on our second or third one in my lifetime right now, or in the trough right now. But,
Yeah, we're definitely.
but if you look at those things, when it starts out, if you have the product, you're successful. So there's a period of time like weed's legal. If you have weed, you're successful. Same as that there was a time when if you had beer, you were a successful brewery. And you're seeing now this sort of like culling, which is not a positive thing, but it's an inevitable thing, where the amount of boxes you have to check to be a successful brewery has increased. And it's the same with weed, right? It's now all of a sudden you also need to make sure like you know how to pay your taxes and you know how to do reasonable marketing, and all of a sudden it's now a real business. Instead of, hey guys, I got a bunch of weed, you want to buy it? Oh sweet, I'm rich now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if you look, if you just look at that concept of product life cycle, you have this moment of innovation, right? When everything's on the upswing and people are, putting weird adjuncts in beers and things like that, and then it almost always levels out. People kind of have to go back to the basics, focus on what's happening, beer flavored beer, and then where we are right now is in a period of decline. That always happens, And now things get kind of weeded out. I think the biggest challenge craft beer has faced, particularly in Maine, is bad craft beer. I think that you hear a lot of people say things like, I don't like IPAs, which is crazy if you think of, Torpedo and Substance from Bissell as both IPAs.
Yeah.
There's such a wide spectrum of it. I think what somebody means is they don't like bad IPAs, and
Right.
I don't either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Same, yeah.
So I think people they have a craft beer and they think, oh yeah, those are off flavors and maybe this or that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think COVID was like a nice, we've discussed this personally and then with a lot of other brewers, was nice. I won't phrase it as nice. It was natural selection for a lot of businesses. And craft beer was one of those that was also involved in it, where things had to be taken like seriously. Like you had to show that your shit was good and it was on point, from brewing the beer to packaging to the labeling. And I think you even saw breweries that had overexpanded or missed the mark that were relatively very well known. Like Modern Times closed like 3 or 4 locations, and that was like at their heyday. They had just gotten to a point where they
They're
realized
cool
they were
spots.
they'd gotten so removed from like their local market. They were like, oh fuck, we can't sustain this. So now we're all just going to go back to what we used to know and what we used to do.
Yeah. To that point, COVID was our most profitable years.
Nice.
We between all of the grants out there, and we had we kept our staff. We didn't lay off anybody that didn't want to get laid off.
Oh, awesome.
We were able to switch to a delivery model. Our brewers were out there like delivering beer and pizza. I'll never, as long as I live, forget walking in here wearing a mask and having the big long center table just full of beer that was staged to go out. 2 girls behind the counter with headsets on, taking orders,
Just filling.
and the place just humming.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And what happened to us, the restaurant business, you make your money on these certain days during these certain times.
Yeah.
And then you stay open Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday to just kind of, give people jobs and keep cash flow coming in. That was just, we were just steady. Every day was a certain amount, and it was worthwhile, and then we just kind of kept it going. And I think, to your point with modern times, I'm not super familiar with how connected or disconnected they are to their town, but one of our core values, I mean, something that we've always focused on is there's a couple things we say. We say own your zone, which is kind of like a cheesy thing to say, but it's like, what are we doing opening up Louisiana if there's places in Augusta that don't have our beer?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we wouldn't do that. We need to focus on our backyard. And I always, when we first opened, I said, guys, we need to be Augusta's brewery. When people come here, I want them to go to Applebee's and order a Cushnoc, assuming it's on the menu.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was like, and Applebee's will never sell our beer, but we want to be that, tied in. And I was thinking about Ommegang in Cooperstown when I said that. You go to Cooperstown, there's like 4 bars and they all have Ommegang, right?
Yeah.
Of course, now that the Applebee's here in Augusta and also Waterville and also Thomaston sells our beer, so
Hell yeah.
they came to us a little
Yeah.
bit. You know what I mean? The market came to craft beer, not them coming to us. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's so wild. I do want to jump back. Like, we skipped over how in the world you opened Cushnoc.
Yeah.
So, like, how did you get into craft beer?
Yeah.
And when did you decide you sold your...
Well, I have a
the
question
company?
for you guys.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, we've never had a question
I
for
think
us.
everybody in beer has a specific experience where they
He's turning it on us.
turned a corner, where they like had a beer and it blew their mind, and then they went down this road. And I want to know what those beers were for you guys.
He can go first and then I'll go second.
Okay, yeah.
This is a question we do ask, so we've never...
you do?
We
Yeah.
do
Oh, okay.
ask this question.
But we never get asked.
We never
to
get
us.
asked this.
We usually just share it
Well,
later
you must have an answer then.
We do.
So mine was actually a not infected beer, it's a beer with diacetyl in it.
Okay.
I was out drinking with some friends, and there's this really popular craft beer bar in Tacoma, Washington called Pint Defiance. We have a park called Point Defiance. It's beautiful, 5-mile loop. But so this beer bar is called Pint Defiance. And went in there, we were probably already buzzed. That's okay though. Walked in, I ordered a green flash beer. I think it was a session IPA back when they called it session IPA still.
Yep.
And it tastes like butter popcorn. And I was just astounded. I was like, holy fuck, how do you put this in a beer? And I'm like loudly exclaiming this to my friends and also to the beer tender. He's like, wait, what beer are you drinking? And I was like, dude, try it. It's this green flash beer. It tastes like buttered popcorn. And now, obviously, it's like, oh, yeah, that's a big no.
Yeah.
So
You didn't know what you were talking about, but he knew.
he ripped it off the tap. He's like, thanks for doing that. That beer's on us. But to me, that was the first time I was like, oh, this is interesting. I'd gone to community college. I grew up Mormon, so I didn't drink in high school. And when I went to community college in Oregon, I started living with a bunch of hippies. So pot was introduced and alcohol was introduced.
Yeah, I heard this story actually. On the,
okay,
on the, Edmund's Oast thing.
Yeah, so that was like I was like drinking their craft beer, but not really like paying attention to it.
Yeah.
But that was the first time I was like, oh, I was fucking super curious, and I remember jogging home because at this point I would run across the bridge to Tacoma because I was a big runner back then. So I'd run like 3 miles to go drink and then 3 miles back.
Nice.
And I stopped by like a Walgreens and there was a magazine and it literally was just like how to brew, and I was like, well, perfect. Picked it up and just started reading. And then
but it was that beer and that experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and he has this innate thing. If you ever are around him and you do like a beer tasting with him, he can literally like say, he says the words that I'm thinking about the experience or about the product that I'm thinking of. He can literally just like pull it out of thin air.
It's just a lot of drinking, but it's also not like, oh,
But
this is
it's
like.
not just
I think
that.
it's a skill. I mean, and whatever, it's a muscle that you have to work out or it won't work.
Yeah.
I mean, I have almost no sensitivity to diacetyl.
Yeah.
It has to be so bad for me
Yeah.
to taste it. Other people can like smell it from across the room. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm just like, I don't like this. And he'll taste it and he'll be able to say what it is. I'm like, yeah, that's what it is. I think that's probably why we're together. Not only just because he can pick out the things in beer that I...
Because he's in your head.
Yeah. But like, he can literally say it. I'll be like trying to think of a word of what it tastes like to me. And he'll say it. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah, it also comes from working in plenty of places where when people were giving tasting classes, they're like, this is ethyl glycol phenol. And that's like, what is that? And they're like, how do you not know this? And I'm like, no, tell it to me like I'm dumb. And it was like really hard for those people to find a translation.
Yeah.
So then I was like, you know what? Like, what
Everybody
are things that
needs
this
an Austin in
relates
their
to
head.
that can just lead? And I'm like, oh yeah, like cornflakes. This reminds me of the Rooster cornflake cereal, like
Yeah.
that type of
Yeah.
graininess. And that associates with people as opposed to being like, how do you not know about like esters and phenols
Right.
and
This
no
weird
and so-
flavor words
yeah.
that you don't understand.
Yeah.
All right, my turn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's hear it.
Okay, so I was living in Nashville, and there was this craft beer bar called Craft Brewed. It's now expanded, and they do have like wine and liquor and stuff as well. But it was just down from where I worked, and a bunch of us would go after work, or like my friends would go, and we would like sit on the patio and whatnot. And I just didn't. I never like. I would drink the like, the whatever beer to like play beer pong or whatever with friends or whatever. But I didn't really like it. I liked drinking whiskey and wine, so I was like, I don't need to like beer. It's fine.
Sure.
But the beer tender there, we would show up all the time, and he just kept on trying to find a beer. So he would give me samples all the time. And
Oh, cool.
He was like, "What do you?"
And then talk to you about them.
Yeah, he was like, "What do
Also
you?"
helps that she's a
he
pretty
was,
girl,
Oh
so-
yeah,
Yeah. I'm sure there was no.
Yeah, definitely
It
not.
was all educated.
Yeah.
He
What a
asked,
good, he should get a raise. That guy. What a
yeah.
dedicated to his craft, right?
He asked me, he was like, so what are the things you like to drink? And I told him I liked coffee and I liked chocolate. He was like, okay, I want you to try this beer. I actually had to look it up because I haven't said it in so long, but it's a Kentucky brewery, Country Boy. It's a Kentucky brewery. It was Shotgun Wedding, and it was like a brown ale, I think. And I just remember tasting it, and I loved it. And
Yeah.
that was the only thing I would drink. So when we would go hang out, if it wasn't on tap, like I would get whatever else, like NA or something like that they had. But he ended up, this beer tender would call anytime it came in, and I would be like, okay, I'll be there this afternoon. And he would have a growler ready for me with like a cute little label,
Again,
like
give this guy
hand,
it's all.
hand
Love
That's
it
weird
again.
because none of the bartenders at any of the place I go has called me at home and tell me.
Absolutely.
They
Maybe just to
literally-
check in, like, hey, how are
They
you doing?
literally
Yeah.
had my number, and they would call me whenever the beer would come, because that was the only beer I would drink. And then after that, I just went straight stouts, like just straight
Yeah.
dark beers. So, anyways, thank you. We didn't even go to Kentucky. We need
Do you
to go.
want to shout the guy out?
I don't even know his name.
Oh, I bet he remembers you.
Oh, 100%.
I think he's married now. I think I know his sister. I think. Anyways,
of
small
course.
town. Anyways, but we do need to go to Kentucky and go to Country Boy and try their beer, because I'm like, I've heard this from other people. Like the first beer that they tried, I just listened back to our New Origin podcast, and like the first beer Dan tried, he's like, I don't really drink those beers anymore.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I mean, I do still drink dark beers, but like I'm sure if I went back and I tried that one, I probably
Little
wouldn't
different
have
experience,
I wouldn't have the same
Yeah.
experience, but I would still like from the fondness of it. What was yours?
The beer that got me interested in craft beer was an Allagash White.
Oh gosh.
Oh, nice.
Right here on the street,
Yeah.
I'll never forget it. We were.
That's quintessential.
Yep. I walked down. I lived here downtown at the time. Walked down to Riverfront Barbecue. Had an Allagash White. I'm guessing this is back when they used to ship Allagash White upside down. Because of the tough to suspend all that stuff.
Yeah, it gets that turbidity.
Yeah. And so I think I probably had like one of the last pints out of the keg. So it was very, very flavorful. And I can just remember being like, I just didn't know a beer could have such complex flavors. You know what I mean? So that really kind of turned me onto it. And then, you do the same thing everybody does. You go to the liquor store and you buy something that looks cool and you have no idea what it is. And you
Yes.
drink a lot of like weird Belgian stuff. And
Oh,
then,
yeah.
you're drinking Honey Brown because you think maybe like that's a craft beer. So I did that whole thing. And then actually when I bought this building that we're in, this is a big building. It's 3,000 square feet on the retail floor. It was built as a Kresge's department store, which later became Kmart. So this is built as a department store. And I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
I bought the building right. It wasn't expensive at this time. At that time, there wasn't a lot of value downtown. There wasn't a lot of reason to come down here, so things were fairly priced. And I was like, man, I love beer, and I know beer needs like a lot of space and doesn't necessarily have a lot of money. So I went to try and find a tenant, and I went to the New England Craft Beer Summit here in Maine, in Portland, and I went to all of the presentations, and I stood up in one of them and said, hey, if anybody would be interested in opening a brewery in Maine. Like, I've got a spot. I'd love to talk to you. No one did, but a little bit later, I got contacted, and I'm not really sure how, but by the guys who owned Night Shift Brewing.
Oh, okay.
That recently sold, but they were on fire at that time, and they were looking kind of, they've got that place in Everett. They knew it was probably going to sell. That area's expanding. So they're going to kick us out and put up a condo here. So they were kind of looking for a forever home, and we went through the process of, as the developer, like we would have built the building and sell it back to them. So we had a lot of meetings with those guys, maybe like 10 or 15 times we sat down with them. We were going to them, they were coming to us, they were bringing us beers. We were, and between the Craft Beer Summit and hanging out with those guys, all great people, by the way, I felt like I had a little bit of an understanding of the business. Okay. Full, like, outsider looking in stuff, but I also really, what struck me back then was that these guys, just the confidence that they had, that they just knew they were going to kill it. Every single thing they did was successful, I mean, they've been a victim of the times like everybody, but at that time they were really, really doing well. So anyway, I wound up not being able to find anybody to do this. Actually, the Downtown Association here sent out something like 500 letters to breweries all over the country and said, like, there's this space, we want to have a brewery in Augusta, come do it. They only had one person call, and it was the guy from Hill Farmstead.
Oh, Sean?
Yeah, he's the only call they got back. And the guy calls me, he's like, the guy from the Downtown Association called me, he's like, yeah, this guy Sean Hill called me. He's kind of weird, I don't know. I never heard of his brewery, it's called Hill Farmstead. I'm like, dude, are you serious? Funny, Sean actually was or is dating a girl in Monmouth, which is right around the corner, and has been to this place a lot, so our servers are always like, oh my God, look at that. The legend is in the building.
3 degrees of separation. All comes back.
Of course, he's never had the beer because he's sober now, but anyway, so I went and found Casey Hines, who was running a pub called the Liberal Cup down the street, and it took me about 6 months to convince him to be a partner. Interestingly, I think I got him because I was buddies with Tim Adams from Oxbow.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's a skater. So we knew each other from outside of beer before I was in beer. And he was like really, really supportive of me every step of the way.
Nice.
And so I hit him up. I was like, hey, man, I'm trying to do a brewery in Augusta. And I met with him in this space. He came up and brought some beers, and we talked it through. And he was like, I'm in. I want to do it. And I was like, great, I got Tim Adams. Like, this is going to be great. This guy knows how to make beer. We're going to kill this. And then, so I told Casey that we got Tim, and all of a sudden Casey's like, oh, well, this might work out then.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And then, now Casey's all the way in, and, 5 or 6 meetings later, Tim calls me. He's like, I don't know what the heck I think I'm doing. He's like, I have my own brewery. I have my own projects in mind. Like, I just think you're going to kill it, and I want to be helpful to you. And, it just seems like it's such a really awesome project that I would like to be a part of it, but I just can't.
Yeah.
And he's like, but I'll help you any way I can. What can I do? And I said, well, we need a brewer, because that was you. And so he actually connected us with a guy, Chris Geerlings, who was brewing at Southbound and had taken a job in the Midwest at a brewery. He wanted to be a head brewer. He was, production guy, and took a job, trained his replacement, sold his house, put an offer on a house in the Midwest. I'm about to move there, and the guy calls and goes, don't bother coming, I'm going out of business. So he now has no place to live and no job, and so he just sent a bunch of applications out, and to breweries he thought were cool, and one was Oxbow. So Tim basically forwarded me anybody that had professional brewing experience. And,
nice.
And one was Chris, and we didn't know he didn't have anything to do at the time, but we had a Skype call with him, and he seems like a good dude. Interestingly, all the partners in this business just happened to be the same age. Not like childhood friends or anything. It just happened that way.
Oh, that's interesting.
And him and his wife just drove up and got an Airbnb in Freeport or something like that. And we had a couple of sit-down interviews, and he brought some homebrew that was fantastic. And we were just like, we were talking to other guys too, but they were bringing production beers. And he brings homebrew that's like better than that stuff. So this guy knows what he's doing. This will be great. So he fit right in there. And then my neighbor downtown at the time came to me and said, "Hey, you look like you're doing a lot of, stuff with real estate development and stuff like that. If you ever have a project that you need an investor on, let me know. I'd love to, get involved in that." So I hit him up, and he was like, just not really a big beer guy, not really very interested, but felt like he had to because he'd offered. And so James, he's an attorney here in Augusta, has been a partner. And thank God we have him because he's
I'm sure it helps. Yeah, with legal
label
stuff.
registrations and making sure our liquor license doesn't expire. And every time we get a cease and desist or something like that, he's great to have. So we have those folks, me, Casey, Chris, and James, and then Casey's wife, Amber, was not an employee originally, but was here every waking hour, helping her husband through this very stressful opening a restaurant, not knowing what we're doing. None of us knew anything about what we were doing at the time. So she was here all the time, and after we'd been open a month or two, she'd taken a sabbatical from work and was here. And Casey came to us, he's like, "Hey, I feel like maybe we should think about starting to pay Amber." And I was like, "We're not paying Amber?"
Yeah, you're like, I thought this was already done.
Yeah, we had no idea. So she came to work full time and gave up her job. She's a physical therapist, and she just kills the food program here. And last year or the year before, we were able to figure out a way to carve out some ownership for her too. So.
Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome.
she should have been an owner the whole time, and she's now an equal partner in the other things that we're doing. The new restaurant we're opening in Waterville and stuff. So we're very lucky to have the people that we have. The concept is very much shaped by the individuals, and I was thinking about that today. We've got our discussions about the new place, and it's everything from what the trays we're going to serve the tacos on, and what the paper is underneath it, things like that. And I was like, some of the best business decisions I ever made were compromises that I didn't agree with. I wasn't a big fan of the pizza idea. Pizza was the best thing.
It's such good pizza.
We've
had it. It's so good.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It was the best. It was the best thing we ever did, of course. So having those guys, and we always say, stay in your lane. We've all got our own lane. We've all got our own responsibilities. We've all got our own job descriptions. And I think because everybody is so good at what they do, that it really kind of puts the pressure on the rest of us. And so we're all kind of constantly elevating each other. And I think it's worked out really well. I think we don't argue. We get along. We respect each other. And
well, I'll definitely say it's worked out well. I mean, the beer is fucking great. The food is great. And this is something
we saw it at the Portland Whole Foods. It's up selling there. Yeah.
And what I like about this story and getting to know you is that sometimes when we meet people and they're talking about how they started their business, turned into brewery or whatnot, some of it is very planned, and then the other half seems to be very chaotic. Yeah. But it gets beautifully aligned, and I think this is one of those cases where you were taking opportunities and doors that were being opened, and you were meeting these people, and it gave you the perfect people, even if their title or description maybe didn't fit what you needed, but you were like, I trust this person. I think we can do this, and here it is now. I think that's a really cool testament to what Cushnoc has built.
Lots of really happy accidents.
Yeah.
Nice.
Lots of things that you just kind of go. If I could have seen the future, we would have done what we accidentally did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we've been really, really lucky, and So I came on full time to the brewery when I sold my. I've always been involved, but never day-to-day responsibilities. So when I came on full time, January 1st will be 2 years that I've been here full time.
Nice.
The kind of hole that we had was the sales, and so I kind of took that on, hired a salesperson, and I'm so if it's outside events, that's me, and doing all the stuff that I used to do, as well as soft goods, any branding types of things, and
your merch is great. I was looking at it,
merch. Oh my gosh, I want to buy every single thing.
the hoodie. I like how it's a nice kind of baggy hoodie, but it's not just boxy.
We got all types of good stuff coming too.
I was about to say, is it it feels to me like it's a skateboarder's hoodie. A little bit. Is that your influence?
That's just a complete.
That's a complete accident.
I don't know. You drew that conclusion yourself.
Yeah, certainly. If you, this is weird to get into, but if you look at skateboarding as a business, it's the most fickle that there is because the primary consumer is 12 to 16-year-old boys, and those guys change like the wind. So.
I know those hoodies are always in.
Yeah, the branding though the lessons learned from branding and how to make a brand stand out are really all from skateboarding, and just sort of understanding that you need to be, the customers are watching you, but you need to be watching the customers too. Yeah. And I don't think you ever have to compromise your values or who you are or your brand to, nobody wants to pander. That, number one marketing tenet is authenticity. So you have to be yourself, right? You can't just chase a trend. But it's worked out really, really well, and it's been really beneficial to have that experience. I'm sure
it definitely plays into, like we said, the merch and everything. So I want to go back. How did y'all come up with the name and the logo?
And also, are we saying it right? We keep saying Cushnoc. I have no clue.
Cushnoc.
Okay, gotcha.
So
we asked a couple people.
Cushnoc is a Native American word. It means head of tide.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Augusta, which is where we are, is on the head of the Kennebec, at the banks of the Kennebec River, one of the few cities that exists on both sides of a river. And the tide, because the Kennebec is a tidal river, the tide comes in as far as Augusta. So this is how far up the river you could take a larger boat.
Oh, wow, okay.
So they built Old Fort Western as a place that they could bring big boats up, drop stuff off at the fort, and take smaller boats north from there. So Augusta is really here because it's the head of tide.
Oh, okay.
And Cushnoc is the Cushnoc region.
Gotcha.
Also known as Cushnoc, which is not spelled as good, so that's not what we were. But
Gotcha.
So, and if you look at the logo,
Yeah.
actually, if you look out the back window of the brewery, what you'll see is the river, and almost directly across the river from us is Old Fort Western.
Okay.
So that was strategically built there as the head of tide. So we are very much at the head of tide.
Very cool.
So we wanted a name, thinking ahead, again, skateboarding. We didn't want to be Augusta Brewing Company because the further you get from Augusta, the less relevant you are.
Yeah.
But we also wanted to make sure that it was clear that we were proud of where we are and proud of the people around us and being part of a community. So we wanted to give a little bit of like a nod to the geographic location without that becoming limiting.
Right, yeah.
That's super smart.
We had a lot of really good name ideas. Cushnoc was not like I said, some of my best business decisions were compromises. Wasn't my top choice for a name, but looking back on it, it was the right thing. And I'm not sure, I could be wrong about this, but I've got a buddy, Pete, who's a graphic designer, who I hit up with about this kind of stuff when I do it. And I'm not sure he didn't also come up with the name.
Okay.
He's just like Googling Augusta. You know what I mean? And
Gotcha.
like looking for things. And he definitely did the logo and things like that. But I can't remember if I found Cushnoc Googling or if it was actually something that he came about. Or might have been one of the other guys. I always take credit for stuff. And then when they're like, are you serious, dude? That was me. So it was definitely one of the other guys.
There you go. There you go. I love it. I mean, it is so unique and like it does stick in your head. And the logo is so like, it was so, we always look at beer labels, of course. And for myself, because I'm really bad at remembering names, I love like looking at the logos and being able to remember the names to things.
Yeah.
And so when we were at Whole Foods the other day, I was like, oh, Cushnoc. And it's just the logo. It doesn't even say, it's not right there on the name. But I was so proud of myself. And so like, I think the labeling is so good. And
yeah, it gives that personality and profile.
Yeah, the marketing for it is awesome.
Well, the idea is to have an icon, right? Something that prints well on the side of a 18-wheeler and also, on the breast pocket of a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Something that is printable in one color, something that works on a black background or a white background or a colored background. There's a lot of little boxes you got to check with the logo if you're paying attention. And I think we've been lucky. The icon's cool and lots of tattoos. Our I don't know if it's our first or second year anniversary, we offered to pay for 100 Cushnoc tattoos.
Oh, that's awesome.
And 100 people got Cushnoc tattoos. And we paid for everyone.
Yeah,
That's
I love
great.
it.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I've
never
we should
heard
actually
of
take
that.
that one back. Yeah, I just thought it would be
You
so
just
sick.
take it back.
Yeah, well, we got to a point as owners, we were like, we're getting Cushnoc tattoos. And everybody's like, you first, We all have them, even like my partner, James, who only has the one tattoo. Has
Is the Cushnoc
tattoo, yeah.
Nice.
But I was like, everyone should get a Cushnoc tattoo. And so we paid for them.
Heck yeah. No, that's so rad. We've actually talked to multiple people where it's either been they didn't know the person was getting a tattoo and they got a tattoo of like the business or brewery. I used to work at Fort George. We do Festival of Dark Arts. It's like Cirque du Soleil but during February and stouts. But they typically will bring tattoo artists, and people can get like flash tattoos that are kind of like themed for that. And I think it's becoming a more and more popular thing now. I see a lot of breweries that do anniversary parties where it's like, we have a local like tattoo artist coming in, and they have like a flash sheet, and you can pick. And I'm like, that's rad. That's rad.
Cool.
Yeah. I think probably the idea came from the skate park of Tampa in Florida, where
go.
every year they do the AM contest, and they have a tattoo artist set up, and they give free skate park of Tampa tattoos.
Oh,
and
that's
they
right.
stay busy all day.
I'm sure.
People will take a free tattoo. They don't even care what it is.
Yeah, for sure.
It is funny that
better or worse.
people will do free tattoos, but then they'll also like years later might pay money to get that covered.
Yeah, of course.
Just-
Pay now or pay later, dude.
Yeah.
But everybody pays.
Yeah, for sure. I
That's
love
so
that
good.
so much. That's a great story. And so what was the timeline of y'all opening? Like when did y'all open?
We opened in 2017. We turned 7 Halloween of this year.
Okay.
So a
Oh,
little over
congrats.
7 years old.
Yeah.
Yep.
Congratulations. We've talked to several breweries recently that are all around 7 years old.
Yeah, that 2015. I think it was only just a couple years before that Ballast Point sold for $1 billion, and that's when you saw a lot of breweries. Not saying this is at all indicative to your story, but like the huge part of the craft beer bubble was like,
You can,
We are for sale.
anytime you want.
$1 billion.
Yeah. Oh,
100%.
please and thank you.
Maybe less.
Yeah. It's negotiable. But yeah,
Sure.
you did.
Make me an offer.
There are a lot of, I think that's where people are like, oh shit, you can,
Yeah.
and because that's also when AB and
Yeah.
Bev was like, we have to buy more craft
Yes.
breweries because we want to control the market more. So it was like, ever since then, it was buying, and now you see they're all dumping. Tilray's dumping, AB and Bev is dumping breweries,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's that product life cycle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100% like you're preaching. And when it's not, it's no longer. This ties into what you were saying. Like it's disingenuous. Like the breweries started based on community and community feedback and feeling tied to something.
Yeah.
And the second that the business model started really picking up and be like, oh, we can just kind of like what they do now with crypto, like rug pull it. Like we can flip this super quick.
Yeah.
That's, I think, is what has alienated or made people not want to be nearly as invested as it was before. And that's where people find themselves now being like, oh man, like we want to do this for the community.
I think there's certain businesses, and they're the best kinds, that your brand can become part of somebody's identity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think breweries, I think skateboarding, I think CrossFit gyms, I think there's a lot of mountain biking, all that kind of stuff where people are like, no, I'm part of this brand. It's part of who I am. And we always try to be really cognizant of that and very intentional on kind of giving credit that we're not just us partners that are, doing the work on the daily basis. We're also our employees and our community and all the people that kind of like see their own reflection in our brand.
Yeah. It's like we exist because of you.
Yeah, man. We always say vote beer and pizza. We don't care like who you voted for. And we all got opinions, but we don't care who you voted for. We, come in and eat some pizza and drink some beer. You're all welcome.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
What was that community response whenever y'all did open?
It's interesting because we were starting at that time. Augusta was a little bit of like a craft beer desert. Like you had to get out of here to get beer. You couldn't find good beer. When we announced we were opening, it was absolutely insane the amount of support that we got instantly from the community.
Mm-hmm.
We had a Facebook page and got 1,000 likes in like 4 hours.
Oh, wow.
In a community of 10,000 people.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So yeah, it really, really took off, and this community has always taken such good care of us. I don't want to say it's embarrassing, but man, when COVID came around, this town made sure we were going to be around when it was over, and that has always meant a lot to me.
That's crazy.
Because a lot of people just clammed up and disappeared during that time. We did the best. We followed every regulation to the T, but we did exactly what they would allow us to do. When they said you can be open for takeout, we were open for takeout. We got through that whole thing without an outbreak in the building. We never had a little super spreader event in here. Even though we had all these people coming and going to their various families, we kept it safe. We kept it legit. And this community has really, really looked out for us. It was incredible. I will never forget as long as I live. We were doing a soft opening. And each one of us got our own night. You can invite people on Tuesday. I'll invite people on Wednesday, whatever. But I can remember coming around the corner at the top of the hill and looking downtown. I live downtown, so I know what the street looks like.
Yeah.
And it used to be you could pull in a parking space at 5:00 and like drive in the parking lane all the way like through the whole length of downtown. And I came around that corner and downtown was full. And I was like, there is no way. This is because of us. There's no way. And I park my car and I go in, and this place is full. Not a single seat. And I was like, this is the soft opening.
Yeah.
You guys aren't even invited and you're here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
It was such a, I stood
That
up
gives me
there
goosebumps.
I stood up there on the mezzanine drinking a Lupolo because we realized really quickly we were going to run out of our own beer. So Tim from Augusta was so supportive of us that we were on a strict, like, do not drink the Cushnoc beer diet. So we had a lot of guest taps and Lupolo. So I will never forget as long as I live, like, that experience, and then coming down here and standing on the mezzanine holding a Lupolo, just being like, I guess it's going to work. Because we had no idea what the reception was going to be. We ordered a bigger brew house after less than 2 weeks in business.
Yeah, pretty quick.
Oh my gosh.
And quadrupled our cellar size after less than a month in business. And we bought our production brewery across the river, like, I think it was barely a year in.
Okay.
Oh, that's
I didn't
awesome.
know that y'all had.
Yeah, I think we opened October, and I think I could get the time wrong. I could look back at it's in our mission guide, but I think it was May of the next year we opened the production brewery.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay, so y'all have this spot, the top room, and then across the river is production.
Yeah, so we're in a tasting room right now that we primarily use for private events.
Yeah, we're down below the.
Yeah, we'll have photos.
Yeah,
It's
we're on
really
the
rad.
ground floor of the brewery on the back side. So we have 2 ground floor entrances, but they're 2 stories apart. So on the back side of the building, you can walk out and you see the river.
Yeah.
There's a middle level where our, like, pub brewing system is. And we've got 6 or 7 FVs up there, and I don't want to say pilot batches or test beers or whatever, but when they want to do something different or try
R&D.
something new, that's brewed there. So there's always something like funky or different on the beer menu here.
Okay.
It's just always a surprise to me, like it is everybody else. You know what I mean? You come in, and a lot of times I don't know that we name everything anymore, but if it's really good, it gets a name, and then we keep it going.
Yeah.
So that's upstairs, and then above that is a 120-seat wood-fired pizza restaurant with a full bar and some, accoutrements in addition to pizza. So we have that, and then about 6 miles from here is what we call the annex, where we have a wood-fired pizza oven in the summertime. We do a lot of other food trucks too,
Oh, nice.
and that's where we do all of everything that goes in a can or to our distributor comes out of there.
Gotcha.
Other than, the brewery upstairs is nice because it's small, and we have like a lot of really good relationships with accounts, and it gives us some flexibility. It doesn't have to be a 30-barrel batch. So
Yeah.
if we want to do a beer with the Thirsty Pig in Portland, who's like really good friends of ours, practically family,
We'll go check
we can do
out.
that here. You know what I mean?
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We
Yeah.
haven't checked out Thirsty Pig yet. So
Oh,
we'll
you got to go there.
Yeah.
It is the craft
The
beer
craft
bar.
beer
Hell yeah.
We'll have to
in
check it
Portland.
out.
Well, that's exciting. It's super nice to have both those. What size is the system up? Is it like a 5-7 barrel?
Upstairs is 3.5.
Oh,
barrel
rad.
system. Yeah, yeah.
Cool. That's from.
So that's what y'all opened with, was that?
We opened with a 1-barrel system.
Y'all opened with a 1-barrel system.
Nice.
I'm
And then
embarrassed to admit
upgraded.
that.
No, I think
No.
it's great.
It shines some light on how little we knew about what we were doing, and also how low our expectations were.
But I think, honestly, I would rather it be that than you being out of business. Because, I mean, we've heard of plenty of places who open big, do big, and then they close. So, like, for
Yeah.
you to open and not, like put out your best but not know what's going to happen, like, I think that's even better of, like, being able to sell out and, like, be able to grow quickly and within your means.
I mean, it's a good story, right? People like that. People respond to that.
But I mean, honestly, as a business owner, like, being able to grow within your means and not have to close,
Yeah.
I think that's great.
I think it's easy to look at, obviously having gone through many brewery expansions, to be like, oh, if we're gonna get like a 7-barrel, let's just buy a 15-barrel, and like then
Yeah.
we buy 30s, because it's
Yeah, yeah.
cheaper. But like you're saying, is like if your product or you don't know how well it's gonna go or be sold, and especially the first year a brewery opens, you're gonna do great because it's brand new.
Yeah.
What's actually crucial is like the next 3 to 5, and like that's where a lot of breweries where they're just like, oh, like we're gonna crush it. We'll just get a 15-barrel brew house and we'll do this. I would rather be forced to have to like expand from smaller to bigger than be like, oh fuck, we have like empty fermenters,
Yeah.
we have empty brights, our tap room has like died down past our first year of business.
Yeah.
And I've also worked in breweries like that where I'm
Yeah.
like always given those heating advice of being like, this is just my opinion and perception, but this is your business and what you want to do, but this is what I would do in this situation. And they've been like, no, we're not going to do that. And then it's always some of it's come back to bite us in the ass. And I'm just like, oh, okay.
I think
like,
no matter what your business is,
mm-hmm.
the challenge to every successful business is capacity.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is every business with too much capacity is not successful.
Oh, that's a good point.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So you make money when your tanks are full.
Mm-hmm.
If your tanks aren't full, you're probably not making money because you're still paying for those tanks.
Very true.
You know?
I mean,
we've been really lucky to have full tanks.
Yeah.
For 7 years, we had full tanks.
Heck yeah. And
now we're running out of space
tanks.
for them.
Yeah. We've never owned anything. We've worked at places. So this is just like talking to so many places and being at so many places. It's just our opinion. So like, there's a lot of breweries that we love and have talked to and have been a part of. And so it's just really good to like add this to like our experience and to understand. And it all comes to time and place. And I think that's another thing. Like we've talked to plenty of breweries that we're in places that could have big kitchen to do things. And we've talked to other breweries that like their kitchen was not the place that needed to be in their brewery. They could have done other things. And so, you know, I think there's so much to learn as an entrepreneur and as someone who's opening a business of the place that they're opening and what they're doing and their mission. And I don't know, I think there's just a lot of room for interpretation, and the U.S. is a very big place. We started on we're literally almost as far as east as you can go in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And we started on the very, very far west of the states, and we've done a lot of things in between. So it very much is dictated by the community. So I think being authentic and knowing your community is a huge part of that.
Absolutely.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're at an hour. Do we want to do our last few questions?
Yeah. Do you have anything else for us before we have 2 more
I
questions
actually have
for
some
you?
questions prepared for you guys.
Okay,
Awesome.
great.
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay.
I would.
I don't have my SAT scores on hand, but I could tell you they were.
I just wanted to review your resume again.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's hear them. What do you got?
Okay. First question.
Wait, can I really quick?
Okay.
This reminded me. I have a funny Tim Adams story because
I
we
love it.
recently met Tim Adams.
We did.
So we were driving to Maine. Batson River asked us to do a podcast, and we stopped at we drove by and it said Oxbow, and it said, farm beer. And I was like, there's no way they have
We
a
were
location
an hour
up here.
away from Portland, and we're like,
Yeah,
what?
you're Oxford, right?
So we flipped
Tim's out there like working on the ski trails or something.
No, we were
even better.
Even better.
So we flip around and we pull in, and it was like their Oktoberfest is what they were doing.
Oktoberfest.
But so we pull in, and then we're going to be open for another hour and a half. We live in a van, so she was working, chilling in the van with the cats. I decided to get a little stoned, and then I was like, I'm just going to walk around and kind of look around. The door was open, and I was like, oh, cool, it's like an old shop, and I grew up on a farm. So I just being ditzy, and I literally just am walking in there, and there's like old, small SS Brewtech stuff. And I realized I'm like, I walked into like a tap room. It seems like an extension of their main tap room. And I was like, and there was ski stuff on the walls. And I was like, tap room. And they probably like rent out the stuff. I'm in somebody's private space. So I started to walk out. Tim walks in, 2 long braids, like Pippi Longstockings. And he's like, hey man, how's it going? And I'm like, good. I was like, sorry, I'm just peeking around. He's like, oh, no worries, I'm Tim. I'm the owner of Oxbow. So we just like start shooting the shit and talking.
That's perfect, Tim.
And he notices that we live in a van. We have one sticker on our van. It's a gold trout. It's a sticker I got off this guy named Sam Larson. I like it. I don't fish, but I was just like, this is very cool and very cool.
He wants to fish. He talks about fishing a lot.
Yes, I do want to fish.
Tim's your man.
Well, so that's what he's like. He goes, hey, man. He's like, Tim, when you listen to this, because we are interviewing Tim later in February, I apologize that I did lie to you. He's like, hey, man, do you fish? And I'm like,
you're like,
yeah,
big fish.
yeah. I'm like, that's great. And he was like,
I'm like, we need to go buy fishing equipment and like start fishing.
So he's like, the pond right across the way is great. And he's like,
go ahead.
He was like, honestly, the reason we bought this place is so I could just be fishing out here all the time. But super lovely. And now I work at part-time REI, so I'm like looking at all the fishing stuff and gotta
And
get
it's the
some
only
here.
You better get legit before February.
Well,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
and the sticker on the van, like, I don't love like bumper stickers and
Sure.
stuff. I mean, if it's someone else's car, like whatever, but like on our, like, it's, the van is our home too, so I wanted it to be like, no one knows anything.
Yeah.
And so he put the one sticker on, and I was like, no more stickers. So there's literally just the one fish sticker.
Yeah.
The bottom corner.
So he was telling me how much he loved to fish, and then we find his Instagram profile, and he's like sponsored by Yeti. I'm like, oh, this dude fucking fishes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now I'm just like, cool. I've been like reading
You
up
gotta
fishing
fish,
knots and
Yeah.
all this stuff. So I apologize, Tim, but you were just really nice, and I didn't want to seem like a poser.
Amazing.
So
Yeah.
funny. But anyways, yeah, we have enjoyed talking to you so much. So we
Yeah,
just
likewise.
have my question that I have is if you had one piece of advice for your younger self, what would it be?
Oh, that's tricky. I think I probably would have told myself to take it a little bit slower, enjoy the ride a little bit more. I definitely feel like I had a little bit of arrested development being a skateboarder for a really long time, and I felt a lot of pressure when I got to a certain age to kind of become an adult really fast.
Kind of have it figured out.
But when I look at, the 15 years that I worked doing a project of one kind or another every single year, and, we have a young family. I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and buying homes and building homes and buying businesses and building warehouses and apartment buildings and all this other stuff. I probably could have taken it a little bit easier. I probably wouldn't have worn myself out as much, But I'm also done now. I'm practically retired. I'm 46 years old. I can't really
congrats.
complain
Nice.
either. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I work here,
Yeah.
but I don't feel like it's work. So I
It's a
feel like I
different
can
type.
say it's retired. I'm retired because it's, I was at my skate park. I come over here. I talk to you guys. I have a beer. Probably going to go back to the skate park after this,
Nice.
Yeah.
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 That's so awesome.
Love that. Yeah, it is a different type of work. When we talk about how trying to find your passion, when you can kind of nail down that you can do something, do it repetitively over and over again, and it doesn't feel like a job just over broke.
Yeah.
It's like that's the
You
goal.
found your career
Yeah.
right there. Yeah.
Thanks so much.
The last question will be just like any fun events or anything coming up for Cushnoc that we can plug in.
Yeah, so we're doing this podcast in the middle of December. We are opening our new Cushnoc Cantina in Waterville, which is 20 miles north of Augusta, and we will likely be open about the first of the year.
Okay.
So we're getting very, very close on that project. It's coming out fantastic. One of the nice things about wood-fired pizza is that we're limited, so we have to really get creative, and we really have to hone that in. And when you can only do pizza, it better be good. The bad part about pizza is that it's also very limiting. And so we've got very talented partners with other ideas that we can't execute here. So the Cushnoc Cantina is a little bit more taco plate focused, not a Mexican restaurant, but a little bit more modern style open face tacos. I think the menu's coming along really great, and we're really excited about that.
Nice.
What will you be able to announce eventually? Where will you announce what day you'll be opening?
We probably won't.
You probably won't. Okay.
We'll soft open. There's a lot of hype in Waterville, similar to how there was here.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Not to act like a cool guy or anything, but
So cool.
we're going to open the door and people are going to come in. And our biggest concern there, we were unprepared for getting our butts kicked here. We didn't think anyone was going to come in. I think we are well prepared for getting our butts kicked up there.
Gotcha.
We know that it's going to be bonkers, and we know that a lot of times you only get one opportunity to make a first impression. So we want to make sure that we're opening really quality. So there'll be some friends and family nights, and some times when we invite friends and neighbors and friends and neighbors in Waterville, and then we'll
they'll just be open.
one day open. We'll do a ribbon cutting with the chamber after we're open in 6 weeks or something like that.
Fuck yeah. Well, very
Yeah.
cool. Well, we'll keep it
We'll look
posted
for
and just
that.
say, hey, just be on the lookout for a new Cushnoc Cantina in Waterville.
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Well,
No,
thanks
this
so
is
much.
fun.
Pleasure
Thank you
talking
so
to you.
much. This is great. We're excited to take some pictures and be around. So cheers.
Thanks, Tobias.
All right.